The NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing.com has officially begun. It's all in control of Brad Davies in that 11 machine. Green flag flies. He's damn near banged up though. Now the 93 is going to push the 4 of Brian Day all the way up the wall. 4 wide down the super stretch point in the turn. And now the 93 39, the 3 machine goes around. Big trouble in the back. It's going to be the race for the win up front.
Look behind him. They're 3 and 4 wide, trying to make a push to the front as the field gains speed in turn number 1. Kenny Humphrey, if he can rip it back to the start-finish line, will win here at Daytona.
7 laps to go. As you love it.
Here we go.
You love it. The 1 gets around. The 5 gets around. Big jump.
It's week 13 or week 7 or whatever they call it these days. However, we couldn't resist and we welcome you to coverage of the Club UK and Ireland Skip Barber Racing School Showdown at Virginia International Raceway. It is a track which has got more corner names than you can think of, and it's a track where drivers today will be taking on 12 laps of the American version of the Green Hell. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Will Vinson along with Rachel Whiteford here on RaceSpotTV. Qualifying is already underway, so we'll take you immediately to the action. There you can see on the left-hand side of your screen qualifying times as they stand. George Streetley currently on pole position, provisionally by about 12 100ths of a second by Graham Carroll. George Lee Wright in third, with Rob Green in fourth, and Adam Patterson rounding out your top 5. 8 minutes left to go on the racetrack, and we will check in with the driver who currently sits in second place, right on board then with him as he's working himself down in towards turn number 5, exit of 5A, now into the Snake Complex. And Rachel, well, we were here yesterday, we're back here again, ready to do the exact same thing all over again. Graham Carroll pretty close to the rear of George Streetley. But this track, incredibly difficult. 28 named corners, plenty more actually at this racetrack, and this track is incredibly difficult for drivers.
Well, good evening, Will. Yes, this is one heck of a tough track. Often referred to as the American Nordschleife. It is a very, very long lap, as we're seeing in the times, with a 2-minute 57, the current pole. That's really, really, really long. As we see there, yeah, Carroll sitting in second place. He's been dominant all season. Streetley with an impressive timing tonight, Will.
Yeah, and the Grand West course, it measures just over 4 miles, 4.1 miles, and 6 kilometres in length. And, well, it's not the longest track that technically we've ever been to in the Club UK and Ireland Skip Barber Racing School Series. Of course, it's longer than Road America, where we go to quite often. It's not as long as Circuit Spa Francorchamps, but the difference between this and Spa, Rachel, is just how complicated the track is. It's got so many just random elevations and twists and turns that lead themselves into each other that more than anything else, it's just confusing half the time.
That's true, yes, and of course many more slow speed corners here than there are at Spa Francorchamps, which of course has many fast flowing corners. In fact, it's a minute slower because of that, and these guys are going to have a lot of work for themselves tonight. It's narrow, it's bumpy, it's old, and it's twisty. These are 3 things that the Skip Barber car does not like, and with these guys, I think with how narrow it is, we can expect racing at least 4 wide.
Oh, easily, potentially, maybe, who knows. Well, maybe on 2 sections of the racetrack. We'll coming down into one of them right now. This is a turn 26, turn 27 sequence of the racetrack. Now down into Hog Pen, turn number 28. Pit buildings on your right hand side. Now this front straight away is a good opportunity to size up a draft and try and get yourself an overtaking opportunity done, as Graham Carroll works himself past start finish line. Not quite fast enough for him that time by, but as you come down in towards turn number 1, good passing opportunity down into the horseshoe. A little bit actually, Rachel, this corner, like turn number 1 at Lime Rock Park, it opens out but immediately leads into a left-hand corner. NASCAR bend for turn number 3. These first couple of corners very, very similar to what we get at Lime Rock. And of course we know great overtaking opportunities have been made in this series at that section of the racetrack as we check in with your current pole position driver, George Streetley.
That's certainly true, and Lime Rock Park, turn 1, it's, as we saw, has multiple lines, and we will see drivers trying to go too wide through turn 1 here. Possibly not other sections, but turn 1, they've got the speed, they've got the draft, as we see Streetley mowing the lawn there with his number 10 machine. But it's the opportunity to set up a pass wheel, and this first twisty sector will be very busy with passing. Cars will use that long front straight to actually get close to the other cars so they can actually battle.
15 cars have currently set themselves a qualifying time. We've got Tim Adcock, Chris Simpson and Tom Ward yet to set time. Currently riding along board with Peter Cohen in the number 99 Club 100 machine as he works himself down out of the roller coaster down towards turn number 27 and 28 once again. And it's this section of the racetrack where you really don't want to bid it just at the conclusion of a lap, but we'll have a look then at the times for Peter Cohen as he comes past the start finish time. And what his last lap was a 2:58, an out lap for him this time by 2:58.988, his fastest lap of the day. He's got himself 2 more laps to try and get that move. Moving himself ahead of Peter Cohen, those 2 guys very closely separated on the racetrack. Also behind him, George Lambert, as he's just coming into view right about now. He is in a little bit of a torturous battle with Alan Patterson for P number 7 on the racetrack. George Lambert last time by a 2:59.071. Alan Patterson's last lap time a 2:59.113. And good to see that even on a very, very long racetrack like this, Rachel, we still got guys separated by thousandths of a second.
Do we expect anything different from these drivers, Will? They're some of the best Skip Barber drivers I've seen in iRacing. I don't think I'm surprised by anything they do. The times are always so consistently fast. To see 2 drivers separated by only a tenth at a track of this length and complexity, and so many within at least 2 seconds, 3 seconds, that's a huge, huge ability level we're seeing on such a difficult circuit.
Couple of
And as you just see, Dominic Brennan improving 2:57.8.
And we also had Stuart Adcock get himself into what was 3rd place, now down into 4th place. So Dominic Brennan moving himself now up the timing and scoring charts in that 2:12 machine. So he's got himself, well, this will be his final lap by the time he makes it around. So 1 more lap now for Dominic Brennan. And we talked about the curbs yesterday in the Targa Virginia, Rachel. Low curbs here, and I refer it a little bit to Imola in that you've got to abuse them, but not too hard. You've got to kind of flirt with them just a little bit, make use of them to help rotate your race car, especially in this section of the racetrack. As you work yourself up through the climbing S's, you've got to be very careful of them and kind of use them to help just guide the car around, but at the same time take a little bit too much, get yourself onto the grass. In qualifying, it's game over. In the race, well, you could be doing a bit like Egil Sandfield and ending up in the grass as Brennan 4-wheel drift there through turn number 10 South Bend.
Yeah, a lot of racetracks, the drivers and the curbs are a lot like a school disco. You've got the boys on one side, the girls on the other, nobody quite wanting to get too close to the other. Tracks like Virginia International Raceway, you've got to have a few and then just go and have a bounce on the dance floor. You've got to jump up and off those curbs, use them to actually open up the corners. You can gain so much lap time using them that it's almost required.
I'll tell you what, as far as my discos goes, I think there's a little bit of different bouncing, but I think that's another conversation for another day.
Not for this time of night, I think.
Well, we're 1 minute away from the watershed, so we can make our comments on that one in 1 moment's time. They can see Dominic Brennan continuing on his lap then as he works himself down into the spiral. And this is such a crazy section of the racetrack. It's got the kind of gradient changes you see at Laguna Seca, down at the corkscrew there. You do just literally fall down a couple of stories. And it reminds me as well, a little bit like Barber Motorsports Park. And I say this track really, what it does, it picks got so many different bits of other tracks merged together that it's almost as if Herman Tilke was to try and design VIR and he was only allowed to do it with other sections of the racetrack, it would come out similar to this, just probably with more car park areas.
Oh, I agree. In fact, the new, unfortunately, version of VIR is a lot more like a car park. Of course, road safety being very important does somewhat kill the personality. Now, a lot of these sectors here are very similar to things we've seen. Sector 2, it's Road Atlanta, shows up here. You see parts of Laguna Seca, parts of Road America. There's so many great parts of American tracks in this circuit, and the narrowness is a very Barber thing. There isn't much room. Passing in bigger cars is more difficult. These size of cars, don't think it should be a problem.
So, Brennan doesn't get himself to pole position. What can Graham Carroll do? He comes past the start-finish line. Pole position from Graham Carroll in the dying moments of qualifying. A storming lap. 2 minutes 56.743. Graham Carroll goes to pole position. What can Streetley do as he works himself down Madison Avenue for the final time? So, he's now got himself... well, they got 3 minutes left for these guys to get around the racetrack. That's just how long this lap is. He's got himself half a lap to go. Traffic ahead of him as he works himself out of Bitch. Yes, the watershed is finished. And also, it's actually called Bitch, turn number 14 here. You head yourself through 15, down into the spiral once again. And we'll just show you here. Just that is how much these cars fall down. But Streetley now half a lap to go. And he has got some traffic in the form of that number 21 machine of Tim Adcock, who himself is on a flying lap. And it looks like Streetley pulls over.
I think he gave himself a off-track penalty there, Will, which has invalidated that lap for him. He will not complete it, but wow. 1 second clear of the competition there for Graham Carroll. Yeah, that is storming.
Did it at the perfect moment to put that pressure on Streetley. Streetley made a mistake then on his final lap through the spiral. Now we look at Tim Adcock. You've also got Marcus Norris, Chris Simpson, Ashley Bakley, David Grinnell and Fahim Atinides all trying to make runs Tim Adcock goes off, so his qualifying is done. We'll check in on any other drivers finishing on a lap. You've got Chris Simpson. Well, he should about finish his qualifying lap as he works himself now out of the final corner down towards start finish line. That's what his lap time is going to be. His best so far, a 3:314 as he comes past start finish line. Final lap then for Chris Simpson in the Club 100 number 8 car, and it will be a slower lap, so he does not improve on qualifying at all. Having a look then at Marius, and he has gone off for the racetrack, so his qualifying is done. Ashley Blakely working himself now past the start finish line. His fastest lap, a 3:526. Well, consistent there, Rachel. 3:538, 2 lap times within 100th and a bit of a second, but he's scoring no higher than P14 on the grid.
Yeah, pretty close grid as we're used to seeing. Well, it should be interesting once these guys get underway.
As you see David Grunhill coming past the start-finish line there as well. 3:945, the last of our drivers to qualify. So he does not improve on his time either. And what that does, ladies and gentlemen, it sets our field and allows us to run through your starting grid for today's event. And it will be Graham Carroll starting this race on pole position. 2:56.743 with George Streetley starting alongside him on the front row of the grid. Row number 2, it is going to be Dominic Brennan and Stuart Adcock. And then we head ourselves back to the 3rd row of the grid where you see George Lambert and George Lee Wright. Row number 4, Peter Cohen and Rob Green. Row 5, Anna Patterson and Tim Adcock. Samuel Worley and Marcus Narris in row 6. Chris Simpson and Ashley Blakely in row number 7. David Grunhill for Fahim Atinides in row 8. Matthew Dalton and Tom Ward rounding out our 18-car field here today. Rachel, start here. The first half a lap is going to be insanely close.
Yeah, completely agree there. This will be exciting. It's a very tight section, and the first time we go through the infield section, it's going to be, I think, a war zone. We've got a few drivers in this field who will make things exciting, and some big names slightly out of position, which could make things even more racy.
Well, there you can see then a look high above at Virginia International Raceway, the track that measures 4.10 miles, and there you can see the front straightaway. It's such a long and complicated track here. We'll zoom it in, and there we can see a look at the cars as they are getting set to go racing. They'll be racing here today for a total of 12 laps around this absolutely magnificent Virginia International Raceway. There you can see the front row of the grid. Graham Carroll is there waiting for those lights to go on. TopTheIcing.com gantry. We are underway at Virginia International Raceway. Good start there by Carroll as they come down towards turn number 1 for the first time. Looking as though everyone's getting themselves single file. Good start though by George Lee Wright as they come down in towards turn number 1. A little bit of too wide racing, too wide, too deep almost. George Streetley having a little bit of a look to the outside, not able to do anything about it as your field funnels down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. And Rachel, everyone in turn number 1, everyone out of turn number 1 without any issues.
They are indeed, but it is not over yet, as we have quite a lot of corners left to go in this race. But so far, the first corner, the big one for the start of every race, has been done cleanly. That sets everyone's mentality correctly, doesn't it, Will?
It really does, as we can just see George Lambert then riding along board with him, right up behind the rear of Stuart Adcock in the battle for P5 on the racetrack. Lambert running in that 5th position as they now work themselves out of the snake, up through, down towards the time, climbing S's for the first time. Everyone except for Tom Ward starting in this race, so he will take no part. He missed the grid, but out front there you can see George Streetley right on the rear of Graham Carroll. This is your battle for the race lead, and of course in this track, the corner that we're going to come out of in just one moment's time, the fabled Oak Tree corner. Well, as soon as you come onto that, you're onto Madison Avenue, and George Streetley can have himself an incredible run down the Madison Avenue straightaway. There you can see your top 3 drivers separated for the time being by 0.7 of a second. They come down onto Madison Avenue for the first time, and there you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4. Your second train is incredibly close as well. Can George Streetley do anything of it at all as they come down in towards turn number 13 for the first time? Well, the answer to that question is going to be yes, he does. He looks down to the inside in towards turn number 13 and make now George Streetley your new race leader as they work themselves out of bits, Rachel.
I do indeed, and it's, several drivers made that corner there, bitch, as we see George Lee Wright getting past George Lambert there, although Peter Cowan's going to look from behind and fight back for that position.
Yeah, and this is this battle for P number 5 and 6 on the racetrack. Having a look then from the rear of George Lee Wright in the number 20 cars. He works himself now out of the spiral down towards turn number 19 and 20 for the first lap in this event. Clean start though, all of these drivers been able to get through without any real incident at all. A little bit behind George Lee Wright is Peter Cohen, and he's battling with still George Lambert. Lambert's actually had a bit of a slow start to this race. He's now fallen down into the 7th place on the racetrack as he works himself now up through turn number 23, 24, 24A into the roller coaster for the first time in this 12-lap event. But side by side, just a moment ago between Streetley and Carroll, Streetley continues to lead the way, and the gap between himself and Graham Carroll currently sits at 0.6 of a second as they work themselves down in towards the hog pen for the first time.
Yeah, this first pack and the second pack seem to have closed up something well. We've now seemed to be almost reforming a single train there with that first 8 cars. But not quite so, as we see Carroll and Streetley just having a little bit of a gap, working together early on.
Yeah, down in towards turn number 1 again. A little bit of a half move to the outside will go George Streetley, but it's not going to work out for him.
Contact.
As
Carroll and Streetley.
Just a little bit, but they will carry in. You can see a little bit of damage to the front there of the 00 car of Graham Carroll, and that's actually allowed Dominic Brennan back into play as well. We work on board with Brennan in the 212 car, and you can see that gap ahead of them as they work themselves through NASCAR Bend. Now the left hook for turn number 4, flicking it to the right, down in towards turn number 5, 5A, now the snake. You come into turn number 6 and 6A. Brennan running that 3rd position. Really have now got yourself to 2 trains as Peter Cohen going side by side with George Lee Wright. We're right along board then with Peter Cohen, as you can see right behind him is that number 13 car of George Lambert. Battle for P5, P6 is hotting up, Rachel.
Yeah, these guys are getting pretty antsy back here. We've got 5 cars being left behind by the front 3, drastically so. Fight for first position in that second train, fight for third, and letting them get away.
Yeah, as George Lee Wright right on the rear now of Stuart Adcock, they let themselves down into the Oak Tree corner, so we're right on board with him as he comes out of Oak Tree, heads himself down that back straightaway in the battle for the race lead. Streetley should just have enough this time by speed differential now up on your screen. This is between George Lee Wright and Stuart Adcock. It's going to be at this stage right about here that draft will really kick in. You can see 4 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. Georgie Wright looks down to the inside, and he will make an easy pass to an Adcock, and he's going to lose 2 positions as the number 99 car of Peter Cohen is going to slide himself through as well, Rachel, as they come down out of bitch once again, down towards the spiral.
Yeah, he will indeed. It'll be nice to see what George can do now. He's got some clean air to catch those front 3. We know he's fast. Will he have enough? Now he's clear of Adcock to go after those 3.
As they can see, the cars from P4 all the way back to P at number 9 working themselves in a nice gaggle right now as they work themselves up the hill, and you can just see it in front as well. Your battle for the race lead between Streetley and Carroll and Brennan. That one's not going to David Grunhill. He's spun his car around. That is down in the spiral, Rachel. Our first driver having any real forms of issue in this race.
Yeah, and it's somewhere you're going to have issues. I think he's parking that car potentially. Yep, he's called it. That's enough for him there. Unfortunate end to his race. It's been a tough one. But
it looks as though he got rear-ended by the looks of it. We just want to get another replay. We just had one on board of him. I think he did get rear-ended somewhere along the way.
He had rear wing damage, which would indicate that. We're looking at the replay now, hopefully. And we will see the number 24 car behind him of Samuel Worley gets right into his left rear. Suspension damage there, Will, and rear wing. That's why he's parked that car.
And he is classified now as out of the race. Out front, however, Streetley Spinator, well, he's got side-by-side with Graham Carroll, battle for the race lead, and Streetley will hold on for the time being. But right behind him, you can see, is Graham Carroll, less than 2/10 of a second back. They let themselves down into NASCAR Ben once again. Great little scrap here between your top 3 drivers. Currently separated by just half a second on the racetrack. And now they've built up a 2.9-second advantage to Georgie Wright, who runs in that 4th position, is right on board with Dominic Brennan in the 212 car, running in that 3rd place. But Carroll, very fast. I think, Carroll getting himself a little bit wide that time by very fast in the final sector here, Rachel, and then also down in towards turn number 1.
Yeah, that's where they're making some of their time in those fast corners, Will. The slower corners, not quite his cup of tea, and it's costing him time there to Streetley.
As you can see, your second pack, as it has started to string out just a little bit. You've currently got your top 10 with George Streetley. Dominic Brennan actually was in 2nd place. He is now scored back down in the 3rd position. We have lost Graham Carroll from that list, but George Wright 4th, Cohen in 5th. Adcock, Lambert, Green, Patterson and Adcock, they are your drivers scored in your top 10 for the time being. As your mid-pack works itself back through the Oak Tree corner once again, and this time we should see a little bit more passing once again. Now George Wright has himself a 6/10 of a second advantage for the time being over Peter Cohen, so it looks like he should be able to do something. But just ahead, Dominic Brennan is on the move. Will he be able to get himself past? No, he doesn't. He will stay in line for the time being as they funnel themselves down Madison Avenue into towards turn number 13 once again, and there you can see your battle just behind them as they work themselves. Get this, Rachel, only on lap number 3, and Cohen's now got a lot of company. He's putting a lot of pressure actually on George Wright as they come down into the spiral once again.
He will be doing that, Will. He's got the speed, definitely for sure, and he's making it count early. You've got to do it now, because otherwise you'll just lose contact with cars ahead and you won't have the time to go after them in later laps. As we say that though, Matt Dalton making a move in that number 54 car on the 24 of Samuel Worley, and now going after Fahim Antonides, who, let's not forget, in the regular season is one of our top 5 drivers, so some interesting action going on further back.
Yeah, and there you can see the number 54 car, El Capitane, Mr. Matthew Dalton, as he works himself now out of the spiral in his Marlboro machine, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember not to smoke, because smoking is bad, okay? But nice little 3M Marlboro car there, as actually he's going to have Samuel Woody right behind him. Of course, Woody's the driver who had the incident earlier on with David Grunhill, which is why you'll be able to see no front end tip there to Samuel Woody's car on a straight with such long straightaways, Rachel. It's going to make life very difficult, as Georgie Wright, I believe, is just off the racetrack. He's actually onto... Is he onto pit road? No, he's
slow, but he's staying out.
Yeah, so he's had some form of an issue. We'll get ourselves a replay and try and figure out what happened to George Lee Wright, but he's now falling down into the 10th place on the racetrack.
He had a solo spin coming through the final corner onto the main straight. One of the worst places to have it was such a high-speed straight. Got his wheels on the grass, the left-hand side wheels there, and just did himself a slow, lazy donut before rejoining.
Yep, as they can see, he fell down completely, the timing and scorings we'll get ourselves one more look at that, powered by our and One Design aerial coverage here on RaceSpotTV. And this is him coming down into the final corner. There you can see the slowest of all slow spins. We don't even need to put it on the super slow mode, but George Lee Wright now falling down into the 10th position for the time being. He's going to have a lot of work to do because he's currently classified as 4 seconds behind that lead train. And at a track like this with drafting so important, Rachel, well, George Lee Wright now, he's got that clean air, and those guys ahead of him are battling, but he's got a lot to do now in the next 5 laps or so to try and catch back up to that lead group.
Yeah, I think he can do it in pure speed, Will, but when he gets frustrated, he's one of those drivers that is perhaps a little bit impatient in traffic. And after self-spinning, he's going to be kicking himself, and I just hope he's cautious as he moves through this traffic as he tries to get back towards the front.
Well, here we got ourselves a potential battle for the race lead once again. George Streetley trying to line up Graham Carroll as they come down in towards, and there you can see down to the inside will go George Streetley back to the race lead as they work themselves down in towards turn number 13 once again. Coming out the corner, George Streetley. Once again, your race leader, almost Graham Carroll, running to the rear of him. Dominic Brennan right behind, side by side again as they come down into the spiral. George Streetley is going to be able to hold on, but a bit of a wiggle for him. That's going to allow Graham Carroll to be right behind him as they come out of the spiral, Rachel.
Yeah, and this is the third time they've actually swapped position on this lap, Will. These guys are going for it. Official lead changes aren't going to be very descriptive for this one. Carroll, really aggressive at the moment. He wants that position back.
As we've got Samuel Worley. He's had an incident and he is classified now as out of the race. So Samuel Worley, after being involved in an incident with David Grunhill a little bit earlier on.
No, he hit Dalton.
Oh, so he hit
rear-ended
two
Matt
people
Dalton as
now.
well.
So this is down into turn 13. Oh, that's a nasty impact there in the number 24 car. Get ourselves one more quick look at that one. But Samuel Worley's been in the wars just a little bit here today, Rachel. And, well, that one, again, it looks like he just locked up under braking in that number 24 car and punting, literally, Matthew Dalton. I think Dalton's going to be okay, but Samuel Worley just caught him there with his right rear tyre, and he's now scored down on pit road.
Yeah, Matt Dalton's car does have some damage, but that's the front spoiler, which is probably from the curbs. Nothing to the rear end of the car. Actually, the rear wing might look a little bit askew, but not too badly. Hopefully the suspension looks okay from the way he's taking corners, but I don't think it's a case of locking up, Will. I think Samuel Worley needs to remember what the middle pedal in his car does.
As we can see side by side once again, Graham Carroll, George Streetley, battle for the race lead, Dominic Brennan right there behind them. Now, your top 3 drivers, they have been able to break away now by 4.77. It's actually Brennan there, been able to slide himself up into second position. So good driving by Brennan. We've seen this, Rachel, quite a number of times in this series. That Brennan is a driver. He will just wait for mistakes to happen. He won't over-punish his car. He will just sit there, take opportunities as they come to him, and now he's in prime position to just try and catch up to the rear of Graham Carroll and pounce once again. But once again, he's still got George Streetley right behind him, that battle for what is now P2 on the racetrack.
He does, and I think there isn't a single driver at the moment without front wing damage from these demanding curbs these drivers are using, Will, which is going to affect how it handles, especially them turn into the corner with that wing damage.
As you can see, as they come back down in towards Oak Tree once again, now rest in peace Oak Tree, unfortunately, as we go back on board there from the rear of Dominic Brennan. You can see George Streetley right behind him, and Rob Green has had an incident as well, a spin on the racetrack, and I have no idea what that is because there's so much grass, but Rob Green back out onto the racetrack, Rachel, after having himself a solo spin. And to give you an update, it looks like that Streetley's going to be side by side as they come down on Dominic Brennan, and in fact Brennan is able to keep that position. No, Streetley gets through.
He does indeed, and that makes it a nice move there from him. But Brennan, he's all over the back of him. I don't think he's going to give up just yet. He's smelt blood in the water.
And it's a very long spin actually for Rob Green as well, and that was down in the climbing S's. Again, we talk about high speed at this racetrack, Rachel, and it's so difficult to just loop your car down at the climbing S's, down on the run down into Oak Tree Corner, down at Hog Pen. You don't at any of those points, you are costing yourself an absolute ton of time. And we'll drive, of course, we had an incident earlier on, George Lee Wright. He has actually been able to get himself now back up within 2.7 seconds of Alan Patterson, who currently runs 8th place in the number 14 machine. And last time by, though, Patterson was about a second faster than George Lee Wright, and that gap's actually opened back up between those two drivers now to 3.8 seconds on the racetrack.
It has, and it won't be closing anytime soon because Lee Wright is not as fast as Patterson. Last time around, second slower, Will. But yeah, interesting to see if he can claw his way back. We have still got, of course, 7 laps remaining in this race. And I think a few of them want it to be over already, namely Carroll and Streetley.
Yes. This is why they call it the Green Hell. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you missed it yesterday, check out the Target Virginia on our RaceSpotTV archive. Absolutely fascinating race there, where it was back-to-back wins for Apex Racing UK driver Jesper Pedersen in the Target Virginia. And now that was a demanding event yesterday, Rachel, but this is again another demanding one. So having a look then from our wing cam of Graham Carroll as he works himself down into left hook, turn number 4 on the racetrack.
Yeah, he does indeed, and he's got a good run there. Notice how much of the curb he does use on the apex. He's right on top of it, Will. Trying to straighten that track as much as possible to make these little kinks as flat as he can. Of course, keeping that pedal fixed to the floor is the fastest way around the racetrack.
Yes, and also, of course, just by keeping that car straight as possible, what you do is you don't have to hug the wheel as well. And even if you got that foot, you know, flat on the gas pedal, at the same time, you've got to remember, minimise your steering input. And that is what both Carroll and Streetley have been doing incredibly well. Oh no, Streetley pushing a little bit wide there, and the run down into Oak Tree Corner. Thankfully, though, wasn't going to have that one capitalised by Dominic Brennan. Brennan will stay in the 3rd place for the time being, just behind George Lambert and Peter Cohen. They are battling for position as they come out of Oak Tree down towards Madison Avenue, down towards turn number 13 once again, riding along board with George Lambert, and the overspeed, don't think Lambert's going to get the full tilt of it this time by, because he's about 4 tenths of a second back. He'll close up, but I don't think he'll have enough to get past Rachel.
No, he's not close enough to Cohen to take advantage of that yet, and that's maybe if he can stick with him over the next lap, he can use it again, or even use it on the pit straight. But not quite close enough to really have that exit. He didn't have quite the advantage coming out of Oak Tree.
As you can see, these drivers just working themselves down into towards the spiral once again. Your top 10 as it stands, ladies and gentlemen. It's Carroll from Streetley, from Brennan, from Cohen, from Lambert, from Tim Adcock, and Patterson, George Lee Wright, and Rob Green, your retirees in this race so far. We've had 2 of them, David Grunhill and Tom Ward. Samuel Wardy has been able to get his car back out onto the racetrack, as we've just been having a look then at this nice little battle going on for P4 on the racetrack. Having a look down the field as well, and Matthew Dalton still battling with Ashley Blakely. They can see the gap between himself and Fahim Martinez ahead of him, and it does look as though Dalton just going off there in the number 54 car, and he's going to go off again, and he's going to lose a position there to Ashley Blakely, Rachel.
Yeah, it's quite nice seeing that Williams car there passing the Ferrari of Matt Dalton. It's almost like watching mid-90s Formula 1.
Yeah, as you can see, Dalton now down into the 14th position. Ashley Blakely moving up 1 position. That's actually where he started, in the 13th position last time by for him. A 3-minute 2.036. But to go back to your battle out front, and here's an interesting point, Rachel. Now, Graham Carroll is out of draft range, and they can see the gap. And like last time by, Graham Carroll a 256.7, George Streetley a 257.1. Now, if I'm right, that would have put Graham Carroll on pole position. In fact, that was the fastest lap I think we've seen all day long by Graham Carroll that last time by. Deep into this run, lap number 7. Now, normally, we expect fastest lap times to come about 2-3 laps in, but then, actually, for these drivers to kind of fall off the pace a little bit towards the end of the run. It does look as though that Carroll has kept something in reserve, and now he is starting to pull away.
He is indeed, but let's not forget, like Road America, 2 cars drafting can close up to the one on his own much more easily than the one on his own can keep away. Although with this being as long, and with long straights it being more technical, if he can open up that gap enough between the straights, he can actually keep that gap.
As we can see, still that battle raging on for P number 2 on the racetrack. Let's see whether Brennan will try and do anything here as we ride along board of him as they come through Oak Tree once again, and that gap is about 0.2 seconds now between Brennan to your race leader. There is confirmation of that one as they come back down onto the rear straight away. And actually, Brennan had a very sluggish turn number 11 and 12 Oak Tree corner, Rachel, because it's put him about 4 tenths per second back. He was right on the rear as they worked through South Bend. And what this does is it means that Brennan, again, not close enough to rear the Streetly as they come down into 13-14.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think we've also lost Stuart Adcock. I think he's had some sort of incident.
Stuart Adcock, yeah, no, he's still circulating. There we can see him in the number 52 car. Currently scored in the 10th place on the racetrack. And he started, though, in the 4th position, so he has fallen back rather dramatically. One of a couple of drivers who have had some incidents. Now, George Lee Wright is actually caught up. In fact, Stuart Adcock has had an incident because he's fallen down. His last lap was a 3:11, Rachel. Incredibly long lap, and unfortunately, we're not going to see exactly what happened to him. He's now fallen down into the 10th spot as he works himself down into the spiral once again. But Rob Green is right in front of him right now, and the gap between these two drivers is, well, it's about half a second on the racetrack. To get a look now on the rear of Rob Green as they work themselves down into 19, and then that 20 chicane, which then leads yourself down into 21.
Yeah, he's not quite got the distance he wants, but hopefully he can start to pull that back. Up front though, Will, things are starting to get a bit more dicey as Streetly and Brennan are beginning to catch up now to Carroll.
Yeah, last time by it was a 2:56.7 then for Streetly right along board now with drivers scored in the 2nd place. It is George Streetly. Let's see what his lap time is. Can he respond? No, a 2-minute 57.1 for, sorry, 2-minute 57.2 for George Streetly, a 2-minute 56.5 for Graham Carroll. That is incredible stuff, Rachel. And we'll just have a look then. Your leaders, the last lap times, is 2:56.5 for Graham Carroll. It was a 2-minute 57.2 for George Streetly, a 2-minute 57.0 for Dominic Brennan. Graham Carroll is the only driver to have laps inside of the 2-minute 56 range all race long.
I think he's found something here that nobody else knows about. That or he has rocket boosters strapped on his Skippy.
Over that, he's secretly driving a Star Mazda engine. I have no idea. So have a look back on board. Then with Dominic Brennan, a little bit of a wiggle there for George Streetly. That's going to allow Brennan to close up just a little bit in this continuing battle for P number 2 on the racetrack. They can see that gap back down to a 1/10 of a second. But through this section of the racetrack, the climbing S's, you don't actually want that draft. You want to be almost 2 tenths per second back as you come down into South Bend, which you're coming through right about now. As you see Brennan just having to get off the gas to get some much better run out of the corner this time by. Now let's stay along board of him and see if he can actually nail Oak Tree Corner this time by. If he can, he'll have a good passing opportunity coming down into the next corner. I think that Brennan knows he's going to have to get ahead this time by. Gap 3 tenths per second. This should be good enough, Rachel. If he gets himself a good run, indeed he does. That gap is coming down. Brennan should have enough of a toe to make a move down into turn number 13.
I don't think he's going to have it. Well, he's closing and he's much, but he's going to have to go to the outside. Not best for coming into bitch, but I think he could go for an undercut exiting the corner if he gets this nice line in, and he does. Yeah, there we go. Streetly getting very loose on the exit there.
Yeah, so Brennan losing the position there, so gaining the position as Streetly lost a spot there. Now we'll get ourselves another look at that one. You're right, Streetly really did just lose it all by himself, just getting a little bit wide on the exit of turn number 13. So he did everything right by going to the inside to defend as they came down into the corner. Instant replay up on your screen. Coming down into the corner, you'll just notice right about now Streetly pushing a little bit wide, and that allowed Dominic Brennan to capitalise. Down on the inside, he moves himself now up into P2. It's going to be important, Rachel, to see whether Brennan now has anything for Carroll. Now he's got himself a little bit of clean air.
Well, the clean air is very important, but it's going to be a heck of a job to try and catch up to Graham Carroll, who's flying. Now, Streetly came into the corner a little tight from the line he would have wanted, Will, and I think that it's forced him to go a little bit slower than he'd like, and it's gotten the car a bit unstable, which is why I think we saw him open the steering towards the exit just to stop it wobbling. I think he felt the car getting loose, reacted so that it didn't drop ends on him, because this car, it does like to have its back end facing forwards.
Just checking in on the battle for P4, P5. George Lambert running himself in the 4th position. Peter Cohen running himself in P number 5. Now, these two have been going on it for the last couple of laps. They work themselves back past the start-finish line once again. And the gap between those two drivers, well, that is 6 of a second as George Streetly trying to make a move there down in towards turn number 1 on Dominic Brennan. Wasn't quite close enough, so they worked themselves out of 1, back down towards NASCAR Bend for turn number 3. And Rachel, as far as Brennan, I will play a lot of defense right now, because if he gets passed by Streetley once again, or his chance of victory is surely going to be over. We've got ourselves 3 laps to go. He's going to have to take a second lap now out of Carroll, who last time by a little bit slow, and Streetley goes past there as Brennan getting loose on the exit of turn number 5.
That's the thing, Will. Once you get loose, you really have to kind of react to what the car wants to do and go where it wants to go, just so it keeps that balance. And that's exactly what happened to Brennan. He had to just follow the car, chase it back to the track. And Streetley, realising he'd done it himself a lap earlier, decided to take advantage. Well positioned.
This is a replay out of NASCAR Bend, turn 3, down into the left hook for turn number 4. Now you see him getting a little bit wide there, catching the grass, which puts him out of all forms of shapes. And there you can see there that number 10 machine of George Streetley just going past. And that's the thing about this racetrack as well, Rachel. You got so many corners that funnel into another, lead into another, that you got to be so careful. It is a rhythm track here. You alluded to Road Atlanta earlier. Dominic Brennan nowhere near close enough, so work themselves through Madison Avenue again to make that move on George Streetley. And what's happened now is that George Streetley has moved himself now back to 4.5 seconds from the rear of Graham Carroll. And for Carroll, this is now a statement for next season, I think, as much as anything else.
Oh, it is. He wants to assert his dominance early on, Will. He wants to say, look, guys, last season wasn't a fluke. I'm here. I'm on form. And I'm going to bring this championship to you guys. A lot of his contenders will be in this race. Dominic Brennan specifically, Streetley and the Adcocks are all title fighters in this series. And I think he wants to say to them, look, guys, I can best you when it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it when it does.
Just having a look through the field, we've still got an ongoing battle going on between Chris Simpson running in P14, Matthew Dalton running in the 15th position as they are battling towards the rear of the field. To give you an update, by the way, as well, on George Lee Wright, we had an incident with him, of course, earlier on as he had a solo spin. Now, his last lap time was a 2-minute 58.222. He was a second faster than Tim Adcock as Dalton's had an issue, and Dalton, it looks like, is out of the race, Rachel.
I think he is. He's had a loop out of... He looked down towards the inside of Simpson as he was going to try and pass him back, Will. Heading round to Oak Tree, I believe it is. And just takes too much... And oh, it's too much apex curb. A bit wide on the exit. And loops it.
Well,
yeah, self-spin there for Dalton.
El Capitane out of the race, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately. After a good showing, though, in his number 54 car. And, yeah, to go back to the thing of George Lee Wright, there you can see him last lap, 2-minute 58.222. Coming past the start-finish line, it was a 2:59.1 there for Tim Adcock last time by. George Wright does himself a 2-minute 58.633. So that is, actually no, Adcock responded that time by Rachel. 2 times per second fast. The gap is 2 seconds on the racetrack with 3 laps remaining in today's event.
Tell you what, Will, this is quite a quiet race for George Lee Wright. Normally we see him throwing more shapes on track than a colouring book. This time he's had one mistake himself, and otherwise it's been quiet.
I thought there was going to be more shapes, and going back to that disco referencing that we were talking about earlier on again.
Well, you know, disco references, throwing shapes. He's, let's just say he's a colourful character, as represented by his rather interesting colours of his car choice tonight, of purple and green and white. It's maybe to dazzle his opponents.
As George Lambert, Peter Cohen still battling for P4, P5. We'll stick it with this battle for the time being, because Dominic Brennan, by the way, has fallen off now from the rear of George Streetley. I think, Rachel, he just overcooked his tyres a little bit too much, and he's now 2.4 seconds behind George Streetley. Last lap time was 6 tenths of a second slower, as we're having a look from the rear then of George Lambert as they work themselves out of Oak Tree, back down towards Madison Avenue again. Lambert is just so good, though, on the exit of Oak Tree Corner, that Cohen just nowhere near close enough to make a pass when it counts.
Yeah, he is, and this is the most important thing with this car, is the slow in, fast out, and the big long straight is the most critical place for this car. If you get the best exit speed possible, keep the momentum, by getting a really fast exit from these slow corners, you have that advantage and it lasts the whole straight. Literally going out of that corner an extra 2 miles an hour means it can take you a second or less to complete a straight, which is an eternity in racing.
As we're having a look then at that battle as they come back down towards the spiral once again. So just under 2 laps, so just over 2 laps of this event to go. Can Peter Cohen do anything about George Lambert ahead of him, right along board of him as they work themselves now through turns number 19 and 20, 21, now down in towards 22 2, which is actually this right-hander here. Turn number 23, the left-hander, immediately into turn number 24. Easy right, hard into easy right. Becoming harder into easy, medium left into easy right. I think Rachel's the only way I can explain this racetrack.
I think you're have a second career going as a rally co-driver, Will.
As they can see, George Lambert is actually just holding on, taking a little bit less of the curbs than we've seen some of these drivers this. He did actually, you know, just catch himself a bit of a white line as he worked himself actually out of the roller coaster. He's back down into the hog pen section of this racetrack. To give you an update down the field as well, Rob Green has got himself Stuart Adcock right behind him, just a tenth of a second as they work themselves now out of hog pen corner. Having a look from the rear then of Rob Green, Stuart Adcock 3 tenths to a second back. Doesn't look as though he'll get too much of a draft, but in fact Adcock getting himself a very good run. Potential to try and do a late move down in towards turn number 1, Rachel. I probably expect, though, that Adcock will wait until Madison Avenue. No, famous last words. Here he comes on the outside line.
Yeah, it'd be a good place to wait for, but since when has anybody in Skippy Series listened to us? These guys know when they're going and they're going to go for it. 2 laps here. It might seem like an eternity, but
That's 'cause
not an
it is
awful lot of opportunities. Yeah, but not a lot of opportunities on the track to make moves.
No, there really are 4 passing opportunities, in my opinion, in this event. Turn number 1, the horseshoe. Maybe if you get yourself a very good run out of turn number 5 and 6, the snake complex, as you get that short run down into the climbing S's. You've got to be alongside, though, out of turn 6. As we've got Marcus Naris classified now as out of this event. And then you've got yourself, I think, out of Oak Tree Corner, down Madison Avenue, and potentially, again, you have the opportunity into the roller coaster if the driver ahead of you makes a bit of a mistake. So, Stuart Adcock battling with Rob Green in this battle for P9 on the racetrack. There we can see a little look from the rear of Rob Green as he works himself through South Bend down towards Oak Tree. Once again, a lap and a half for these drivers to go, as the Green putting himself a little bit wide there. Now this is going to be critical as they work themselves down the back straightaway. Rob Green, the gap is 3 tenths of a second, and we know that he can make a move from 3 tenths of a second back. I think that Adcock really needed just another half a tenth though, Rachel.
Yeah, just a little bit more could have made all the difference there. It's just so finicky, this car. The draft is so small because it's such a small car.
As he does look down to the inside, but doesn't have anything to do with it at all, as they now come down through bits, down into turn number 15, now down into Spiral Gate. And just look at this track fall away right about here. You can barely see anything as you work yourself into the spiral. The track just completely falls away from all you can see at this point of the racetrack is the sky, with Rob Green running himself from P number 9. Stuart Adcock and P10. Actually, they're in a net P8 and P9, ladies and gentlemen, because Marcus Niles has just broken our timing and scoring loops a little bit. But Adcock now starting to look for bits of the racetrack that don't really exist now, Rachel. And the same going for Cohen. Again, he's starting to look for overtaking opportunities in parts of the racetrack that you really just can't overtake.
Well, this is the desperation at the end of the race. You want to find whatever you can. Anything that gives you a little bit of extra time. You're starting to flirt, though, with penalties.
White flag is out there, ladies and gentlemen. 1 more lap to go for Graham Carroll as he works himself back down in towards turn number 1. And there you can see him. We haven't really talked much about him for the last 5 laps. So that's because he's able to pull out a couple of a second gap over George Streetley. He was doing laps in the 2 minute 56 ranges. He has fallen back down into the 2 minute 57 ranges. His fastest official lap of the race is 2 minute 57.212. We did see lap times from him, Alva, in the 2 minute 56.5. That did include him going off the track, which is why it's not classified as an official lap, however, as he's back down into the left hook. Turn number 4, about 2/3 of a lap now left to go for George Streetley in his number 10 machine. And there you can see as well, gap between himself, sorry, George Streetley and Dominic Brennan is 1.6 seconds. Graham Carroll, though, still really is pushing along. As there you can see Carroll in the 00 car, now working himself through those climbing S's. And Rachel, what a drive we've seen by Graham Carroll here today.
Yeah, he's been completely flawless, Will. He's just not put a foot wrong. He's defended and fought well with Streetley. Not been an easy ride for him. He hasn't had it all his own way. It's not been a pole to gold sort of day. But he has earned it. He's fought that position back. He's taken the position. He's had racing with Streetley and Brennan. And I think he's had a great run.
Just one more chance then for Lambert and Cohen. And does Cohen get a good run out the corner? It's about exactly the same as what we've seen by other drivers. It's that kind of 3.5 temps for a second region. Having a look then as these guys work themselves down at Madison Avenue for what will be their final time in this race. There you can see the speed chart. There you can see the gap. There you can see Peter Cohen looking potentially to the outside. So they come down in towards turn number 13. And will Cohen be able to make it work on the outside line? Mighty close between them as we work along board then with Peter Cohen. Is he going to be able to complete that pass? Next corner is technically a left-hander. They will stay side by side, but move Peter Cohen up, Rachel, into the 4th position. Nice outside line pass by him.
Will indeed, and that was a sterling pass there from Peter Cohen. He got exactly what he needed, pounced right at the last second, and he will hopefully have enough to keep this on, make it stick well.
George Lee Wright battling with Tim Adcock. It looks like George Lee Wright is going to be the victor in that one as they work themselves back down once again. But let's go back then to have a look at Graham Carroll as he's now down into the roller coaster for the final time. Just a handful of corners now left for him to go. As, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an incredible Week 13 event at the Green Hell, Virginia International Raceway. And of course, we kick off our coverage once again as Monday nights become Skippy nights here on RaceSpotTV in just 1 week's time. Graham Carroll, however, works himself now out of the hog pen, down towards the start-finish line, and he will claim victory in the Club UK and Ireland Week 13 Showdown at Virginia International Raceway. He does it in emphatic fashion there over George Streetley. Gap at the line will be in the region of 5.2 seconds. So you can see Streetley coming past the start-finish line now. Claims 2nd place, 3rd place going to Dominic Brennan. 4th place waiting for him now. Peter Cohen at the line. No Lambert or Cohen. It was mighty close, Rachel. But I think our time in scoring, it is Cohen. So Peter Cohen does get it at the line. So he will be 4th. George Lambert in the 5th position. George Lee Wright now. In fact, no, Tim Adcock's going side by side with him as well. Does show Lee Wright being in 6th. Tim Adcock in 6th position. Rob Green in 8th place. Stuart Adcock in 9th. Adam Patterson rounding out your top 10. And these guys, I think they've had enough now, Rachel.
I think they have. This has been a long, short race. 40 minutes for these guys, longer than normal. 12 laps is a lot of laps.
So then let's have a look at the end of this race. Was it close there between Peter Cohen?
Not at all.
No, it wasn't at all. So our timing and scoring just had a little bit of a malfunction, as you see there from the rear of Peter Cohen, as at number 13 car of George Lambert. Well, yep, back 2 car lengths. That's quite a bit in this form of racing as they work themselves down towards the start-finish line once again. And George Lee Wright as well, you can see. He had himself a nice little gap of about a couple of car lengths as they work themselves out of hog pen as well. Stuart Adcock, actually, Tim Adcock was a little bit close as they came to the line. Right on the rear there of George Lee Wright, but nothing he could do about it at all. But it was Graham Carroll who takes victory, ladies and gentlemen, in today's event. And confirmation of your race results. Graham Carroll, fastest lap time, 2minute 56.568. Incredible stuff there by Graham Carroll. But he claims victory by 5.2 seconds overall from George Streetley. Dominic Brennan coming home in the 3rd position. 4th place to Peter Cohen. 5th place, George Lambert. 6th is George Lee Wright. 7th is Tim Adcock. 8th is Stuart Adcock. So the Adcock brothers are, well, 7th and 8th here today. Rob Green in 9th and Adam Patterson rounding out your top 10. Rest of the results then. Fahim Atanides in 11th. Ashley Blakely in 12th. Simpson 13th. Samuel Worley 14th. Marcus Naris in 15th. Matthew Dalton in 16th. David Grunhill in 17th. And Tom Ward did not start this race. He is classified officially though in the 18th position. And Rachel, for those of you who are watching this for the first time, this is what I like to call probably one of the more lackadaisical races. It had some great racing, but not as crazy and intense as what we are going to see, of course, in, well, just 1 week's time when we resume our coverage of the Club UK and Ireland Skip Barber Racing School Championship.
Yeah, when points are on the line, these guys go for it hammer and tongue. This race has been quiet in both numbers and action, I should say. Normally we see almost double this number of cars. Obviously week 13, it's people are taking a break. It's going to be an exciting season. And last season was anything to go by. I'm not sure I'm going to be hair left before the end of the season.
Yeah, indeed. We're just getting those there. Look by aerial coverage powered by Ad1 Design. Of course, we've not got one Skip Barber Championship to do next season. We've got two, with the 2K Cup on Saturday nights. So Monday nights and Saturday nights are now Skippy nights here on RaceSpotTV. And they're going to offer two very similar but two very different forms of racing all in one go.
They are indeed. The 2K Cup, I believe, using a elimination format as part of its racing. And, of course, the Skippy UK and I series involving Cake and Death.
Cake
part
or
of its
Cake or
format.
Death.
Well, Cake and Death in these guys' cases. They want everything at once.
Cake, Death, I'll have both. But can I have the cake first, please, before unless it's poisoned cake.
That would be a twist.
But
what if the cake was death, and the cake was also a lie?
That's a true story. I think that's
Indeed.
a rather emphatic end to end our coverage on here today. Unless anyone's going to come and talk to us, which I'm not quite sure. They never do.
They never ever do.
I have no understanding as to why they don't do this. In fact, I am just going to check, because I know some of my people have the other random access to the booth, but I don't think anyone does. In fact, no, they don't have any there. No one's done there. So, well, Rachel, should we leave on a nice thought?
We shall. Have you got a nice thought?
Come on, well, Vincent, when's the last time I ever had a nice thought?
He doesn't have a nice thought, folks. So long, and thanks for all the fish.
There we are.
How's that?
Indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a RaceSpotTV presentation of the Club UK and Ireland Week 13 Showdown at Virginia International Raceway. Don't forget, coverage of the Season 1 2015 Championship will be here all season long, exclusively live on RaceSpotTV, your home for the 2014 iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. Myself, Will Vincent, Rachel Reitman. We shall talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.